Good day and welcome to another Cloud Security Alliance session. Today we are going to take a look at the human resources security domain of the cloud control matrix. The human resources security domain is a crucial component of the cloud control matrix. It addresses the full life cycle of an employee from pre-employment to post-termination, ensuring that access to data and systems is well maintained. And today we'll be looking at the implementation best practices for the HRS domain security controls. My name is Johan Olivier, and I am the Security and Compliance Director at Chorus Docs. So let's take a quick look at what the Cloud Control Matrix is. The Cloud Control Matrix represents an extensive framework of cybersecurity controls developed through the collaborative efforts of customers, cloud service providers, and experts in assurance. It stands aligned with global regulations, and it integrates seamlessly with most pertinent security frameworks. By clarifying security obligations through the shared security responsibility model, it delineates the roles of the cloud service providers and its customers. Moreover, it tailors the delivery model applicability across software as a service, platform as a service, and infrastructure as a service for each control. The Security Trust Assurance and Risk Program, also known as the CSA STAR, provides a publicly accessible, documented registry of the security and privacy controls of cloud service offerings. This program is designed to encourage transparency between the CSPs, cloud service providers, and their customers, and at the foundation of this program is the CCM. The CCM brings a set of very valuable tools to the industry to ensure that absolutely the best security practices are applied. As an example, the CCM implementation guidelines are designed to help organizations effectively implement the controls specified in the CCM. These guidelines provide detailed recommendations and a structured guidance for each control, ensuring that both cloud service providers and customers can navigate and apply the controls effectively. The CCM Shared Security Responsibility Model is a framework within the CCM that clarifies the division of security responsibilities between the cloud service providers and its customers. And this model is crucial for ensuring that both parties understand their roles for securing the environments. It reduces the risk of security breaches due to miscommunication and misunderstandings. The Consensus Assessment Initiative Questionnaire, also known as the CCM CAIQ, is a tool provided by the Cloud Security Alliance that is closely aligned with the CCM to help organizations assess the security posture of the cloud service providers. The CCM consists of 17 distinct domains and a total of 197 controls. But today we will focus only on the human resources security domain. So let's take a closer look at the HRS domain controls. First of all, let's consider the top risk. This year, still up to 74% of all security breaches and information leaks involve a human element. So that's really where we need to focus. We need to ensure that all employees, contractors, supply personnel, etc., understand their roles and responsibilities in securing data. And for that, we've developed 13 controls in the CCM to provide complete personnel risk coverage. This starts with contracts, liability clauses, and consequences of misconduct. These relate to all stages of an employee from hiring to departure. I call these the personnel lifecycle controls. But then along with that, we also need guardrails. So we have policies and procedures and guidelines, and to address the conduct and responsibilities of personnel within an organization. And of course, we need to communicate all of this to personnel. And for that, we have controls to help us create a security and privacy first mindset. Awareness training controls to ensure individuals understand the importance of information security in their role to protect information. Training is an ongoing process, so we need refresher training and recurring awareness initiatives to ensure it becomes second nature to protect data and systems. In terms of the personnel lifecycle controls, the CCM gives us background screening, employee agreement processes and content, non-disclosure agreements, personnel role and responsibilities, employment termination procedures, which is very, very important, and the return of assets. If we look at personnel conduct controls, we need to define and communicate an acceptable use of technology policy. We need a clean desk policy, which becomes culture of your organization, and we need best practices for remote and home working. And in terms of bringing all of this information to personnel to train them, we have security awareness training, best practices and controls, personal data and sensitive data awareness training, and compliance user responsibility awareness and training. Let's look at this responsibility between cloud service providers and customers. So both cloud service provider and cloud service consumer are responsible for implementing the human resources security controls. And it's important to know that there's an independent responsibility, meaning that both parties need to implement these controls effectively. Let's look at the best practices and the top risks and how does CCM help us mitigate those risks. First of all, there's insider risks. There could be that you employ someone who didn't disclose the criminal history, and that could bring risks into your organization. It might be that the individual is not really suitable for the job. They don't have the experience and the knowledge to get the job done. There could be legal complications, individuals not meeting legal work requirements. And of course, we're always concerned about workplace safety. So it's very important that we look at the HRS background screening policies and procedures. In terms of implementing the best practice here, the screening process should be established and precede any activity in granting access to systems, and the verification process should be tailored to the level of access that the individual need and the nature of the data that they'll be working with. The inappropriate use of technology could compromise your security and could lead to data leaks. Sensitive information left unattended could leak, and there could be exposure of sensitive data when employees work remotely. So to address these risks, the CCM gives us 3 different controls. First of all, we need to define and develop and communicate an acceptable use policy and information security policy. These are the general do's and don'ts to protect information and to secure systems. We also need secure workplaces. We need to lock away documents. We need to clear whiteboards. And you need policies to make sure your devices have an automatic screen lock in place. And it's very important that you work towards these controls becoming second nature, must become part of the culture, workplace culture in your organization. And of course, there's constant awareness and training that needs to be invested into the risks and best practices when working remotely. Lack of control over assets is a big risk. We need to remain in control. We need to ensure that physical and data access is controlled at all times. And after personnel termination, we need to make sure we have non-disclosure agreements, non-compete discussions or agreements, and reminders of these during the exit interview. And for this, we have 2 controls in place. It's important that you follow best practices and maintain an offboarding checklist. Ensure that physical assets are returned, data assets are returned, access tokens are revoked and returned. It's a good practice to have the ability in your organization to remote wipe or lock devices. And you need to communicate the post-employment obligations to individuals. Misunderstandings and disputes and legal disputes could surface when you don't have a well-defined employment agreements. There could also be a misalignment of employee expectations and the risks of not meeting compliance and legal obligations if the terms in the employment agreements is unclear. And there's always a risk of confidentiality or leakage of sensitive information or confidential information if you don't have non-disclosure agreements and confidentiality clauses drafted and enforced. So we have 3 controls to address those risks. First of all, please prevent access to systems and data if you don't have signed agreements in place. Revoke access when there's a breach of agreement by individual, and personnel must sign acknowledgement of policies. It just means they have made the effort to read and ask questions and understand the policies and what is expected from them, and that everything is clearly communicated. So signed acknowledgement of the policies just put you in a good position. And of course, have your NDAs in place. And lastly, we don't want to go there, but if you need to handle misconduct, please have your disciplinary procedures well defined and ready to be used. And then a couple of last items. If there's a confusion about responsibilities and there's a lack of segregation of duties and there's potential security gaps, it's just so easy to step into these traps and to fall victim to security breaches and attacks. So you need to communicate and create awareness on best practices. There could also be a mishandling of information, sensitive or confidential information, just because individuals simply don't know what the best practices are. So constant training, constant awareness, constant reminders of best practices is really important. And for that, we have 4 controls in place. And in terms of best practices, it's important to maintain the training awareness, give training to new joiners in your organization, and to refresh your trainer annually. Make sure the training is based on the role that the individual will fulfill and the type of information they will access. So the CCM HRS domain controls provide full coverage across different implementation models and service engagements for both cloud service providers and customers. And it addresses the entire employee lifecycle within an organization. I encourage you to download the CCM implementation guideline, which is available for free. It contains a lot of well-defined and useful details on how to best implement these controls. Use the Consensus Assessment Initiative questionnaire to assess the posture of your own security and privacy program and make improvements one by one. I also encourage you to reach out to the Cloud Security Alliance and join the CCM working group if you can. We rub shoulders with industry experts and we get different perspectives on the same challenges we all face. If you have any questions or you want to share your thoughts, please reach out to the Cloud Security Matrix Working Group Project Manager or reach out to the CSA support and feel free to visit the website. Thank you very much for your time. I hope the session was informative and meaningful. Thank you.